Okay. Wow. That was that was impressive. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Steven Foxall and Stian Espehjelle. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Welcome to the party.
Thank you.
Nice to be here.
Long day. We are here hanging out after hours. Porsche Center, Oscar and Bottom.
Yeah.
Thank you guys very much for letting me host one podcast here. Perhaps the first of many.
Yeah.
We are in the, what would you call this room?
Fitting lounge.
The fitting lounge.
Yeah.
Fitting lounge. That's a classy name.
It's a classy place. I mean, look at it.
Yeah, right?
Super nice.
All the colors. It's clean. It's white. It's sharp. And that's fitting because I wanted to start this off by talking about, this is something you and I talked about before. And Steven, I think we talked about it briefly, is the customization possibilities with Porsche. This is going to be, by the way, this is going to be a heavy on the Porsche.
Yeah.
It's only fitting. We're all Porsche people.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn a lot from you guys today because I am very uneducated in comparison. So there's going to be a lot of questions coming from my direction. Porsche's current customization program, PEM, right? Stands for?
PEM. It's Porsche exclusive manufacturer.
Yes, 10 points. Nice. Well done. And then next question to Steven. When did PEM start?
That's an excellent question. The answer to which I am not that familiar with. Do you know the answer?
No.
No, I don't. It's been a pretty long-standing thing, I think, to have like paint to sample has been going like a very long time.
Yeah, I think they started with like shop in Germany, like a dealership, and it developed to exclusive manufacturer. So the place where they have it in the large, it's like a large brown building like the one over there. It's the same as it was from the early days.
Really? They kept the same building?
Yeah.
Okay. Is the building similar on the inside as well? Like, is it kind of a...
It's modern and...
Have you been there?
No.
Oh.
Not yet.
One day.
I will.
One day.
Yeah.
But it started under a different name, correct? Because it started out of demand, almost. It was late 70s?
Yeah, it was kind of... I don't remember the year.
I think there was a high demand because I've seen pictures of like 356s that had like covered in fur and stuff. I've seen really weird stuff. So I know it's been going on, but I think it was always a one-off thing until a certain point.
Well, all the cars of that period were hand-built anyway. So all the 356s were basically hand-built. So I think when people wanted a little bit extra, it wasn't that big of a deal to then pick your selective car and make the changes you want to change. But I guess as more people saw it, more people wanted to do it. So it became more of an operation to make such changes.
Was it a big thing back in the day, back then, for people to customize their own cars?
I'm not sure I'm old enough. I'm not sure. But I think you look at like car modification culture goes back to like hot rods and people trying to smuggle alcohol, and they were modifying their cars to go faster in the Prohibition days, I think, and that was in the late 10s and the early 20s and stuff. So I think it goes back quite a long time.
It's the beginning of NASCAR and stock car racing.
Stock car racing, exactly. Yeah, it all comes back from that.
Was that the beginning?
For car modification, I believe so, yeah. It was trying to get more horsepower so they could evade the police a little bit better when they were trying to smuggle their booze into the country.
That's a badass story. That's funny. And that's why this room exists.
Because
people were smuggling booze back then. That's ridiculous. You've customized quite a bit of cars.
Yeah, I've been messing with cars since I was like 17 or so, and started off with some pretty nasty Peugeots. Looking back, actually, a couple of 306s and things. But customizing cars is a pretty big deal for me, I suppose. Making it individual and making it more to what you want it to be rather than what everybody else has.
When did it start for you?
I was 17 and I had a Peugeot 306, 1.4, 60 horsepower, furious.
Nice.
And I put like facelift bumpers on and all this kind of usual kind of stuff, and it kind of stemmed from there. But pretty quickly I got into like the Volkswagen scene, which is a pretty big scene for modification, and bought a Volkswagen Corrado when I was 18.
Corrado?
That's when it started with like coilovers and wheels and all this kind of stuff, and it all started to get a bit out of hand.
Typical teenager stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Much to my parents, they weren't so pleased, I don't think.
Where did you start out of? Where did you start building?
It was always on the driveway because we couldn't ever afford to do it in like a workshop, me and all my friends. So a lot of the stuff started on the driveway. my dad was into cars growing up, but he was never into the kind of modifications we were. He was a Ford man growing up, so he was putting lots of time and effort into making his Fords faster and doing this kind of stuff. So when he sees us lowering our cars and changing the wheels and stuff, it took him a little bit to get around to it. But we had this double garage and this nice tarmac driveway. So me and all my mates would hang out on my driveway and we'd change and modify the cars on the driveway there.
So jealous.
My dad was always so precious about this tarmac driveway that he had. And we were always like spilling petrol and making marks on the floor and oil leaks and stuff. But it's part of it, I think.
When did it turn to the point where you were convinced that you could make money on it?
I think deciding to want like a career in cars came kind of all of a sudden. I suppose I was coming out of school and not really sure what I wanted to study. Was actually looking down an avenue of studying medicine to begin with, but it wasn't something I felt passionate about. And about the age of 17, I started discovering cars and how much I was into cars, and so it made sense to try and monetize this and do something with this. So I applied at an apprenticeship at a local Volkswagen dealership and got it. And that was when I was 18 when I started there.
Okay.
And did 4 years of Volkswagen, and then moved on to Audi. Did just about a year at Audi, and then an opportunity came up at a Porsche dealership down the road, and I jumped for that.
You jumped for that. And I know at one point between then and now, you were not with Porsche.
Yeah, that's true. I ended up working at Tesla for a little bit, which is what brought me to Norway in the first place. So I was looking for some new avenues of excitement and saw a job opportunity in Tesla in Norway. So I thought, this is too good of an opportunity to miss up. So I packed up my stuff and jumped ship to Tesla, which I really liked. And I liked Tesla as a brand and their mission statements. But when I saw this dealership was opening, brand new dealership, looking for technicians, I thought it was too good of an opportunity not to come here from the start of something.
So you've been here from the beginning?
So I've been here since day one, yeah.
And you, Stian?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know what? It is what it is. We're not going to stop it. Or can we shut the door, actually?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, please. Thank you, sir. Fantastic. Very nice man. He's now my favorite employee of Porsche Center.
I do.
You guys have a lot to live up to.
Yeah.
So you started on day one?
Almost, yeah.
Almost.
We started as we had a little shop at Sandvika Store Center.
Yeah, I remember the little store center. Yeah.
And the people at the service and the mechanics worked at Porsche Center Oslo, and then we were at Porsche Center Asker and Bærum.
Okay.
So, Sandvika Store Center, and then
Porsche Center Sandvika Store Center.
It was like this little like pop-up store.
There was a Narvesen store there before.
Yeah.
And then we had like 2 to 3 cars in there, and we had cool. We collaborated with Nespresso and Bang and Olufsen.
Wasn't there a guy with a piano? There was a piano there for a little bit, like a guy playing really nice music on this on the piano.
Yeah, I didn't work there then.
In the store?
Yeah, it was like a little pop-up store, so it was just this little like corner space. They had a few cars in there and some nice little collabs with stuff. And
painted the...
Where's the piano? What happened?
We painted the floor and the walls, and then we put up some plants and did it like really cool. And we had 2 or 3 cars there all times.
What cars did you guys start with?
We had the 911 there. We had the 992 launch there when that was launched, and we had several cars there. Like when the Cayenne Coupe Turbo came, we had that there. We had the demo cars on the roof on the top of Sandvika Store Center.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
No, we didn't have that. That was our parking space. So we parked there and had. Test drives with customers from the top of the roof. And we sold cars.
I didn't know that you were test driving cars from
it was
from on
like
the top.
Having a car store at the Sandvika Store Center.
I didn't know Porsche Center Asker and Bærum had such humble beginnings.
Yeah, it was fun times.
Because when you see the dealership now, it is perhaps the prettiest around.
And when I signed the contract to be here, there was like no dealership. I remember seeing the advert for that they were looking for technicians, and the advert was quite old. And I thought, where's this Porsche Center? I've not seen this. It looks like it's pretty close to where I live. So I drove out and had a look, and it was a construction site, like
Yeah.
very much a construction site. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm not too late.
Yeah. 'Cause I got in touch with Porsche Center asking about them before it was finished as well. I just saw the car, stopped, took pictures. It was a convertible 992 C4S, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty car. First time I ever saw one on the road, took some pictures and was invited to come shoot.
Yeah.
That's nice. And the rest
Super
was
fun.
history.
And the rest was history.
The blue one.
The blue one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very pretty car.
Yeah.
How popular has the 992 been in Norway?
Really popular.
Yeah.
Yeah. It has like it has a more exclusive touch on it, and it's fast. It's so fast.
It's too fast, man.
Yeah,
Like
the-
911s nowadays, even with just like the 4S, it's a fast car, man.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
And you had it went from like the 992 GTS with 450 horsepower to a regular 4S with 450 horsepower, just like 0 to 100 in 3.4 seconds, and
it's wild.
yeah.
How similar are the engines between the 991.2 GTS and the 992?
They're similar in ways. They are a 3-liter flat six twin turbo in the same. There are some modifications to help it get through newer emissions class. So with the EU6 control, so with the petrol particulate filters, for example. But the base of the engine is very similar.
Okay.
But they're moving to variable vane turbos as standard, and some different engine control to get a little bit more horsepower out of it.
Was there, before the 992 came out, was there some pretty obvious areas for growth? Is that the reason why they sort of kept the blueprint and then moved from there?
In terms of the engines? Or?
Yeah, in terms of the engine. Was there like a very obvious path that, okay, we can get another like 40, 50 horsepower out of this so we can keep up with the demanding market?
Yeah, I think so, because it was going from the 991 naturally aspirated engine going to standardizing turbo engines across the range was a pretty big move, and it didn't please a lot of people, but it was a move that was needed to keep up with emissions control, which is what has driven the turbification, if that's a word, of all of the 911s. So the facelift 991s that first received those 3-liter turbocharged engines, they are great engines, but they definitely were maybe still in development in some way, and they've learned a lot. And the 992 engine that comes from this is much stronger, and we see much less problems with things like turbocharger failure and things. You see a little bit of this in the earlier cars, but I think they've changed the lubrication system a little bit in the 992, and they've done a lot better on it, I think.
What about looks wise? Do you think the 992 is an obvious step up from the 991.2?
Massively.
It is. It's
Massively.
it's like before you had people having you have that today as well, but you probably had a 911 and a Panamera, and you drove the Panamera on the long trips at summer, because the 991.2 was slightly more stiff and more race car feel on it. And then you have the 992, and it's softer. It's much faster. It has a more exclusive touch inside. Like you have a bigger screen and a better navigation system, and it feels like it's a luxury in the car. And you can drive it like for hours, not getting tired or having back problems, or
You can look at it for hours too.
yeah, and it's I think it's all over a better car.
But for some people, it's not enough. That's why they come here to this room. What is the most common Porsche exclusive manufacturer upgrade that people put on their cars?
We haven't sold a lot of those. We opened for like over a year ago.
Yeah, about a year, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the colors. They've had that in Oslo for quite a time, and they're like exclusive manufacturer dealership. We're not, but we can like order. We can do it with the customers, and we can order the cars with the special colors. And now it's COVID, so you can like bring the customer down to Stuttgart and stuff, but you can't do that if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
So paint the rims to a different color, and the interior you can get like so much more on the interior.
How far can you go?
Pretty far.
Depends how much money you've got, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's with a lot of, if you go to exclusive manufacturer, it's more or less, if you have enough money, they will do it pretty much in Stuttgart, whatever you want, more or less.
Okay. But how far do you think theoretically now compared to when because the 911 has a long history of being almost an art piece.
Yeah.
Right. The 911 was never meant to be the most functional car. It didn't make sense when they designed it. They were taking a really, I mean, is it wrong to say that it was really easily manufacturable and that the Volkswagen mentality, how it bled over into Porsche, it being just kind of like a, not basic, but like a simple combination of parts that turned into something that could really turn out for the people?
I think simple is the right word. I mean, you look at the 356 and the inspiration from that, and it's not difficult to see its humble beginnings in the Beetle, and the simplification of its manufacture was important because there wasn't a lot of money floating around, so to make these cars in a more simple way was pretty important.
But people started to make it complicated. When you look back at some of the interiors on the old 911s, for example, the creativity is insane, and it goes beyond functionality. But I think it's an art piece.
I think people are not that ballsy today. Like, people,
why not?
I don't know. People like what others have. Like, probably the most popular color today, or the color that people like most is the aventurine green. Everyone that sees
that's the most popular.
Yeah,
in Norway or the world?
Here, I think we have so many customers asking if the aventurine green, if you can have it on the Taycan or the Cross Turismo, or how much does it cost to get it on the. But it's only on the 911.
Okay.
And I think there was a lot of things happened on the in Germany when they almost switched out the 911 to the 928, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
And they really struggled on that time. I think there was some point at the 80s that they were building like Mercedes S-Class on the Porsche fabric.
Because there weren't enough orders to fill the factory.
And then they had the RS2 for Audi, and they sold, like, the 1 year they sold 15,000 cars worldwide, and then it went to 14,000 cars. And then there was I don't remember his name, but he was the CEO down there, and he said that we have to do something. And he went to Japan and brought some people from Toyota over to tell what are we doing wrong, how can we make more money, sell more cars. And it was all about the just-in-time, what do you call it?
The production, where the parts arrive just for when you need them,
So, and the Japanese said that, okay, you're the brand, number one brand in the world to recognize your own faults and not make, also, what do you call it?
It's a good question.
Yeah, like changing faults on the cars. There's a YouTube clip, you can watch that, when they're interviewing a guy. He's in a long coat and he's there with a hammer and hammering on the final touches on the, I think it's a 911. And they ask him how what's your role and how long you worked here for, and he says 30 years, and I'm the only one who has the job that I has, and it's like changing minor faults. Then the Japanese said, like, that's very good that you're good at changing faults, but how about not just doing them? And then they turned everything around.
Why fix it?
Yeah.
Why not stop it happening in the first place?
And then they had, like, Japanese people going everywhere on the fabric, telling people, you're doing that wrong. Don't do that. Just do this.
And I'm sure the Germans took very well to hearing that.
Is that part of the reason why they went back to the old 911 design? Why the 3.2 liter was so similar to the SC?
That's was definitely the reason why they're as good as they are today.
Mm-hmm.
Like like the new Cayenne, for example, it doesn't have any problems. It's so solid. And the 992 is so solid. They have this warranty, Porsche approved. That's really special for the cars. And everything is so solid, like the interior. There's no sounds from the doors, or everything is like tight and done properly.
It's funny. It takes a Japanese engineer to teach a
End up
German
with that,
engineer.
exactly.
That's amazing.
But it's hard because people expect a lot from Porsche, and I think a long time ago, people expected a lot from Porsche, and they would buy a cheaper car brand, and it would kind of be, you would almost expect, it's a bit cheaper, it's okay. But now everybody expects excellence, even if doesn't matter if you're buying a Porsche or a Peugeot or whatever you're buying, everybody wants it to be good. So that, I think, then that really makes Porsche have to work a lot harder to kind of really show out, because if people are spending their money here and not at Audi or somewhere else, there needs to be a reason why they're doing that. And I think recently Porsche really stepped up in kind of exceeding expectations and stuff.
Yes, 100%. The lineup now is rock solid.
Yeah, it is. And over the last kind of decade or so, I think Porsche really moved to a new place, and what people see from Porsche is very different. I mean, when I first joined the company, I was working at Audi at the time. I felt like it was very kind of cutting edge, and Audi was like, yes, this is where I want to be. And the job opportunity came up with Porsche, and I was like, isn't that a bit of like an old white man's kind of, going to the golf track and doing this kind of thing? And I'm like, oh, do I really want to do that and stuff? Because that was the kind of perception I had of Porsche of old. And but I feel recently they've really changed that, really focused on design, and stuff like infotainment has come up massively to be more in line with other manufacturers that they should have been ahead of a long time ago. You look at the infotainment differences from like a 991 and a 992, for example, it's massive, the differences, which is about time, because I think they were a little bit behind on stuff like that for a long time. Yeah.
I think a lot of the superior car brands were behind on a lot of stuff like that, because I see Ferrari stepping it up quite a lot now.
Exactly. I think because before the customer base wasn't that bothered about stuff like that, whereas now they're expecting more from the cars, so it doesn't have to just look good and go fast. It has to be usable and comfortable and practical as well.
Yeah.
And I think every customer expects that from a car. When you buy a car in 2021, you expect that it has a functional navigation system and has every safety equipment and everything.
It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So keeping that in mind and knowing how reliable and how perfect and how sturdy all of the new Porsches are that are coming out, do you think in 20 to 30 years the outlaw community will be as dynamic as it is right now? Like, do you think people will be customizing Porsches the way they're doing at 30, 40-year-old cars at the moment?
I think it's going to be hard. I think because of how government legislation is and the focus on emissions and the things related around that, the car lifespan is much shorter. Like 30 years ago, you built a car and you were building it to last forever pretty much, and cars are designed to have a lifespan now where they will be end-of-lifed by a certain time. So I think this naturally, like, you see people driving around in 40-year-old Golfs and 911s and stuff. I don't think in 40 years you'll see people in 992s, because I think it'll be very hard for them to maintain the prerequisites for whatever legislation might come in. Petrol is disappearing, or the petrol as we know it, I think. But I think Porsche as a manufacturer are doing a lot to help with this. They're investing a lot of money into synthetic fuels, which is pretty massive. I mean, I don't
Do you know anything about it?
I don't know too much about it. I just know that they are spending a lot of money because I think they understand the importance of having an internal combustion engine, not maybe as a point to get from A to B to commute to work, but as an enjoyable thing to use and want. And yes, you'll have your electric car to drive to work and to do your driving duties or your moving around duties. But like in the same way that people still like to listen to a vinyl record or use an analog film camera, they want to drive a combustion engine because it's more about the experience than just moving.
Will that synthetic fuel be more to enable the people who already have cars, or will it enable a new car from Porsche further down the line?
I think it will be both.
Yeah, I think so too. And I really hope it will be on all the cars that are on the road today, because the politics here are messed up.
Particularly for Norway.
One thing is to like you see Bentley is going full electric, Chrysler is going full electric, Volvo is going full electric, and we're like every model we have is our heritage is racing. You have that DNA in all of the cars. Like the Cayenne it's a cool track car. It's a functional 4x4 car. It's a family car. It's everything.
But you still have the Porsche DNA throughout.
Like the stiffness of the car is like if you put it in Sport Plus, it's just a whole different car than other SUVs on the market.
Yeah.
And so it should. I hope that the synthetic fuel will be for every car, so it doesn't have to like. The electrical cars are great, but I can't imagine like only having electrical cars.
So in your point of view, what do you think the timeline would look like for the synthetic fuel to justify Porsche still making internal combustion engines?
It's pretty soon, I think. I mean, Norway have banned the sale of petrol and diesel vehicles by 2025.
You think that's actually going to happen?
It's done. I believe it is done. There'll be the sale of new petrol and diesel cars by 2025.
You cannot sell new cars.
That's radical.
It's done.
Yeah.
It's done. It's happening.
That's radical.
And I believe Porsche have targets to electrify, I think it's 80% of the range by 2030 or 2028, I think. So they
will it stop at 80%, or do you think it'll go beyond?
With Porsche, I think they understand the heritage and the importance that comes from that more than a lot of other brands. I think they very much have one foot very firmly, not in the past necessarily, but they respect and they appreciate their heritage. So it would be wrong for them to suddenly turn away from it with the electrification. So I think what they are doing with balancing both is a good thing.
What are the first models to go electric?
Next one?
Yeah.
It's the Macan.
The Macan. So the Macan will be the first existing model
that
from
will be
Porsche
fully electrified,
to go fully electric.
Yeah.
What do you think it loses or gains from it?
It's hard to say. It's like you see the Model X. It's and the Audi is e-tron. They're both great, like 4x4s. They
tick a lot of boxes for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think it will be a great 4x4 car, and have some Porsche to it, like cool design. I think the design on the car, I don't know, we're not seeing the car at all.
They released that sneak shot. Did you see there was the was it the Le Mans prototype car, and in the background of the one shot they released, there's a clay model of the new Macan. It's like a sneaky Easter egg. Assholes. They always do this all the time.
They're such assholes like that.
But that's all you have of it, you know.
I've seen some like spy photos on the track of it, but they're so covered up with lights on the roof and like everything. So, I imagine the car will be like more of a Cayenne Coupe version, but smaller.
Aerodynamics
like sharper,
will be more
harder,
important.
I think,
like the BMW X4 Coupe version. Just as a Porsche Macan.
Mostly because aerodynamics are so important for an electric car, I guess. It's
I have a Porsche anyway. They're pretty focused on aerodynamics anyway, and have been for quite a long time. But I think the electric Macan will be a big seller in Norway. And it does.
I think so too.
For that kind of mid-sized SUV electric Model Y kind of shape and stuff. It'll do very well for Porsche. And it's important that they have these kind of cars to, people. You get some people who say like, "Oh, a Cayenne isn't a proper Porsche," or a Macan isn't a proper Porsche and stuff. But I think they forget not everybody wants to buy a 911, or not everybody does need a 911, but not everybody thinks they want a 911. So it's important. I think these people don't understand that the sales of Cayenne and Macan and things like this is what is funding the investment into synthetic fuels for them to continue to produce a 911. When the Cayenne was first released, this like saved the Porsche company because of how many they produced and the money they made, so they can continue to R&D into 911 and cool stuff like that.
Isn't it crazy how SUVs did that kind of across the board?
It was mad. It was like nobody ever wanted one or ever thought they needed one, and all of a sudden it was the biggest selling car for Porsche.
What happened? What do you think changed? Because this is worldwide, that the SUV industry just took off. And people are talking about SUVs saving Bentley, SUVs saving, now Ferrari.
Aston Martin as
which
well.
Which is crazy.
I think it's like the people who buys like expensive 911 also has there's few people having that as car number one, and then it's a great everyday car. Like you have everything you need. You have the big booth, you have the ground clearance, 4x4 system, and especially in Norway when you have all our people are going to the cabins at the weekends, and you have space for your family, and here you still have like the Porsche feeling. You have the stiffness and the power of a Porsche.
In the term SUV, what does the sport stand for? In sport utility vehicle, what do they mean by sport?
I don't really know.
That's an interesting question, actually, because you get lots of things that are called SUVs that are clearly not sporty, like in at all.
Like all of them.
I think it's a bit of an old-fashioned an American term. I think is where it came from originally. Because things like the Porsche, I would say that is a sports utility vehicle, but you compare it to other things, and I don't think so.
But do you think the sport necessarily has to be tied in with like athletic performance, or could it be more like off-roady? In which case, why have SUVs gotten so much less capable off-road? What's happening to SUVs now?
I think people like a high driving position and the very large feel of a car, but in like real world, not so many people are using it to do off-road kind of stuff. So they've been slowly becoming less and less off-road focused and just being big, comfortable, nice things that do lots of, they tick a lot of boxes. But the off-road box has been getting smaller and smaller, I think. To a lot of criticism for a lot of people, like the new Defender and things like this. People say, no, it's not a proper off-roader, but not so many people want that anymore. So it's kind of disappearing, I think.
Because it's not that hard to provide. I mean, we were talking about this beforehand. The Cayenne is a very capable car off-road. It's a very good four-wheel drive. The Defender is perhaps the most capable of all time.
Sure.
Everybody's talking extremely highly of it. Why aren't car companies leaning harder on the sport part of SUV? Like why are we still getting things like the Ford Expedition, and why is this still called an SUV? Is there no room in the market for a new term for a UV?
Maybe there should be. Maybe there should be just like a utility vehicle that's more focused a bit harder that way rather than the kind of urban city side of it.
It's like the crossover. You call a car a crossover. It's a thing mixed between an SUV and a regular car.
Yeah. Do you think there's room for Porsche to make a strictly utility vehicle? A UV?
They've got a lot of history in utility vehicles and where the Cayenne first came from, with the history in the Dakar Rally and things like this. I just don't think.
But once again, I mean, you mentioned Dakar Rally. That kind of defines the S in the SUV.
It does. But
what if we took that out and made a truck, for example?
Like a Ute or something.
Do you see
like
a Ute? Can we have a Taycan Ute? That'd be sick. Just cut off the back and make it a pickup.
That would be pretty cool. That would be cool. I think Tesla would have something to say about this if their truck ever lands. Yeah,
there you go. Do you think Porsche has any room to move outside of the sporty branding?
No, not at all. That's their whole heritage. Like that's why people come here to buy a Cayenne instead of an X5. You can buy an X5 for 1.1 million or 1.3. That's a lot cheaper than a Cayenne. Like you have to pay like 500,000 more for a Cayenne, but still, like I had 2012 Cayenne diesel version, and we had the X5 45E here, 2021 model, for a week or so, and the diesel version of the Cayenne was from 2012 and was stiffer and tighter to drive than the new X5. Like it's a great car. The X5 is a beautiful car. It's a cool and fancy interior, but it's like putting 400 horsepower in that and doesn't like really do anything. It's not sporty. It's not. No. It's like driving a boat. If you're driving it over like a speed bump, it just sits like this, and they're two completely different cars. And when people try the Cayenne, and if they have they have the money to buy a Cayenne, I would prefer the Cayenne because of the sportiness. Like you can have a car that you can have fun, and it's fun with your family. You can go on trips and have a comfy ride all the way. But you can also take it out, driving it alone, and have fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are the most successful manufacturer ever in motorsport. So I think it's super important for them that that's how they sell the cars. Winning on the racetrack is how they sell cars in the showroom, I think, and they know that. So I think they will continue to stay behind that forever, I think.
And you see that when they come with the new models now, they have like the Taycan and the Cross Turismo, and then they get the Cayenne Coupe, and they're always talking about the fly line on Porsche. It's very important to them. That's because of the sporty design.
Yep.
It goes through every car they build.
All of that Porsche DNA where they talk about where you, from the driver's position, you can see the top of the front arches in pretty much all Porsche vehicles, these very high arches. And this dates back to, as a driver point, being able to look out over the arch. As the highest point of the arch is the center line of the wheel. So when you're setting up for the apex from the driver's position, you can do this much. I mean, you can do this in a Cayenne.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
I never thought about it.
And all these things
sense.
stem back, even with the key on the left side, which comes back from its Le Mans heritage and stuff. And it doesn't really matter, but it shows that they care about it, you know, and it's important to them that the key is still on the left.
Yeah.
Speaking of Le Mans and the racing heritage of Porsche, is Porsche going to start Le Mans again?
Yeah, they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you seen the car?
No.
Has anybody seen the car?
No.
Does anybody have any expectations for the car?
Yeah, they're gonna win over and over again. Yeah, I think so.
Forever until the end of time.
The heritage they have on Le Mans is just epic. They've won so many times. Yeah. Like I think they have 18 overall victories now.
Yeah. Jesus, this is good.
This is good.
This is good. Porsche needs to come back because at the moment Porsche is pretty limited to Cup cars and Formula E, which is
lame.
the worst racing.
I mean, they're trying, but it's not great.
It seems like it was built by millennials.
But what's cool about Porsche is like when they developed the hybrid engine, they would develop it for the 919 hybrid.
Yeah.
And that's the same technology they use in the Cayenne.
Okay.
But you can go back a little bit further with this, because also in the 997, I think it was called Cup R, they had this recuperation device, which was very similar to what an E-machine is in the early Panameras and Cayennes. That was in the passenger seat of the 997 to recuperate energy during braking to give it a boost again. And this was in the 997 era, so they've been messing around with this for a long time. But
they always like, if they're coming with something really cool and new, like the Taycan is, it's one of the greatest cars today, I think, like electrical cars. The technology in that car, like the 800-volt system, the regeneration on the brakings, and that's developed for the 99X. That's the Formula E car. So they always start with the race car. Yeah. They use the technology in their everyday cars.
This is how it should be.
Yeah. And they are testing it on the race circuit, and particularly with like the victories in Le Mans and stuff, it's one thing to develop something and have it run for an hour, but to win at Le Mans obviously takes a lot more, and the research and development and the engineering that goes into the race cars, as that trickles down into passenger cars, you have a product that's tested beyond the limit that you would see in a passenger car. And I think that's not something many other manufacturers do as good as Porsche do.
No, and it's strange to see that relationship, because some places that doesn't work. It kind of has the adverse effect.
Yeah.
For example, when Ferrari focuses on racing, their cars are crap.
Yeah.
When they focus on their cars, their racing is crap. So it's funny to see Porsche just consistently sweep the board.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see them absolutely dominate in Le Mans again.
Yeah.
I really want to see that happen.
Yeah, I think they will.
I want to ask a question that's been bothering me for the last week or so. I don't know why it's been bothering me, but will there be a modern non-911 classic car anytime soon? Like, which modern non-911 will be considered the first classic outside of the 911 range?
For Porsche?
For Porsche. I don't know why I can't think of an answer to this.
Well, according to Porsche, their classic starts with a 996 and back, but then it also includes the first generation Cayenne. Now is also considered a Porsche classic. But I think this is based off time.
Is this some sort of
rather than
technical
anything.
term that Porsche's defined themselves?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
is
but basically
everybody-
that they have the classic line, so for
Yep.
parts and service and this kind of thing, that now the first generation Cayenne falls under the classic
Yeah.
umbrella of cars, 996 and older, Cayenne.
But I'm talking in like the timeless. People are always going to want this car. The value is going to stay.
People talk a lot. You see at fin.no, and people are talking about 944s and 928. They will only like raise in value, and but that takes time.
Yeah,
It's not like the older 911s.
Yep.
no.
So
But if we're talking about the 996 as a classic, can we include the original Boxster? Yes.
Yeah, 986
Yeah.
Boxster is
But-
also in classic now. Also,
if you see that how the market is developing and how the manufacturers are developing cars now, it's only going electric, right? So there will be more cars like the Cayenne. The first generation Cayenne is like when it came, I thought it was really ugly. And I thought that for a long time.
yeah.
But now when it comes Cayenne Turbo, like 100% mint in here.
You think that's a good looking car? Like,
Yeah,
All
yeah.
of a sudden, the same for me happened with the 996. I know the 996 splits a lot of opinions, and I always used to think it was the not so nice 911. But I think maybe as I've got older, or as I'm looking at them more often, I think, oh, actually, the 996 is a nice car, and
Yeah.
in terms of its design and its value, I think it is only going in one direction. And
What's won you over?
What won me over?
What won you over about the 996?
I think being more exposed to them and being and seeing them more often. I think the interior is quite dated and it's quite hard to change that. But I think as an exterior design, Porsche kind of stepped outside their usual lineup and then quickly stepped back into it. And I think because of that, it will start to become not so much as the ugly duckling or more of the special child of the group, because it was that one time where they thought we're going to do something a little bit different, and it might have not have worked so well at the time. But I think as we look forward, they will continue. Well, you see now 996s are increasing in value now, particularly nice, like sought after turbos and 4Ss and stuff. And but I think like right now, like a 996 turbo, for example, is like a super nice buy.
Yeah.
I think now.
And it's interesting because as the cars are developing, getting electric, we talked about that the synthetic fuel.
Yep.
Electrical cars aren't built to last. Like they're built to last for like you have the 8 years warranty on the battery, and they probably could last for a long time. But the petrol car has a much longer life expansion. So it's interesting to see how it will develop, how these guys here are going to be like in 10, 15 years. Where are they?
Do you think Porsche is going to have battery upgrades eventually?
Yeah, they will. We know that. And that's something making like old or nowadays new electrical cars old really fast. If the car suddenly has like 500 kilometers more range, charge faster.
Yeah.
Well, the technology is moving on a lot faster. I mean, it's exponential growth that's been happening for a long time, and we accelerate more and more and more all the time. So you compare, modern vehicles now to just a couple of years ago versus a longer time ago. There are massive changes over the space of a couple of years, and Tesla are very good at that and keeping their vehicles up to date. And I think with the electrification of Porsche, they've recognized this, and they will also continue to do this, because you don't want to buy a car and then in 4 or 5 years it'd be obsolete or out of date or something. No. It's a lot of money to spend on the car, and I think they are recognizing this to try and like future proof their cars a little bit.
So do you reckon if I were to buy a Taycan 4S, for example, right now, in 5 to 10 years, when the newest Taycan has double the range, could I go to Porsche and swap out the battery?
Maybe.
Or do you think maybe that will be the future of the outlaw market?
Aftermarket, tuning electric cars and stuff. And
You think there'll be, just like people are putting 3.8 liters in like 964s and stuff?
Yeah, I think so. And there are a few companies doing that now who are tuning. You see lots of these like Tesla swaps into all of the cars, and they're tuning to get more horsepower out of them and stuff. which is nice, but I don't think it'll be the same as it used to be, because a lot is being taken away from the consumer as to what's available and what kind of thing you would do on the driveway versus what you would do in the workshop. And particularly with the electric cars as well. I mean, it's 400 or 800 volts, and it's more dangerous than just kind of tinkering with some wheels on your driveway.
Which I think makes it cooler.
I mean, danger is cool.
I'm not recommending it.
I mean, danger is cool for sure.
So I'm curious because I have this like Blade Runner / Ready Player One like envision of the future where people are
It's like
driving
this like dystopian world, and people
like
are still in these
rat
knackered
rod
old
Taycans.
911s. Yeah. Or something
How sick would that be?
Yeah.
That would be cool.
People lift it up. Speaking of lifting up cars, is Porsche working on a Safari 911?
Yeah.
Is that going to happen soon?
I don't know if it's soon, but I've seen pictures of them testing at the Nürburgring with the plastic arches and stuff and the lifted suspension.
Yeah,
there's been some spy pics. Yeah,
there's a lot of 911s coming now. Like you have the latest one is the GT3.
Yep.
And you'll get the GTS really soon.
Yep.
And before that, we will have the Gt3 Touring. And then
that one I'm excited about.
Yeah, me too. I think that's I think the 991 Mark II is GT3 Touring. It's the coolest car ever made.
One of the greatest 911s Porsche have ever made for sure, and would be my 911 of choice if I had like
Mine
money
too.
no object to buy now.
Money no object.
Money no object.
Yeah.
You would have it
GT3
before the
Touring.
911R.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would. Yeah,
You would.
Yeah.
You would have the GT3 Touring instead of the 911R.
I would
Okay.
have it in Brewster Green.
Yeah.
With like the houndstooth
Yep.
on the middle of the seat,
There you go.
and
I don't like the stripes on the R.
No?
I think
That's the one reason you would.
They suck, man. Like, and they are stuck on as well. Like, at least Ferrari paint their stripes on. Porsche stripes are like stuck on. I just think it looks a little bit. I don't like stripes on 911s. And there's this big movement at the moment with stripes on 911s.
But it makes it faster.
I think they look awful. I'm sorry.
Oh, it
to
makes it
everybody
faster.
who thinks it, but I think they're terrible.
You, a man who believes the color red makes a car faster.
Red cars do go faster, Kyle, for sure.
Should agree that stripes make it faster. I don't know. I'm back and forth. I mean, the GT3 Touring seems just more usable. I wouldn't be as scared. This is funny. This is probably one of the only Porsche-related podcasts where we don't have a chance to have one ourselves.
yeah,
Competing with people like Jerry Seinfeld, who has 1 million. No, but it's interesting because I think there is a huge market for creative 911s. For 911s that go a little bit beyond what they should, that are a little bit more customized. But I struggle to see who's going to buy a Safari 911 factory stock.
Yeah, it will be a limited run for sure.
yeah, of course. And
Do you think it will be more GT or more T? Will it be a weaker, lighter version, or will it be a pumped up 500 horsepower monster?
I hope it's pumped up like the single one.
Yeah.
That they've done recently. I think if it's something like this, but it will obviously be tamed down compared to that for more of a production car. But it'll be interesting.
and that car will be probably that's definitely one of the cars you were talking about. You were looking for the next.
Yes.
Kind of classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. I think anything with a number on it is just innately going to be classic.
Yeah.
People are going to want them forever.
Yeah.
Do you think there's more of a market for the Safari beyond just the limited put your name in a hat, they're sold out before they hit the road thing?
It's a pretty niche group, I think, because price-wise it's going to be pretty massive.
Yeah.
And then do you want to spend that much money on something and then go thrashing through the forest in it?
Yes.
Probably. Well, you might do, Kyle. But, so it's a bit of a niche group of people who would buy it, I think.
If I'm spending that much money on something, I better be allowed to thrash it through the forest.
Yeah.
That's my thinking. That's and that's why I feel so bad that you see, like, you guys had a GT2 RS in here that had 1,700 kilometers on it. How?
Mm.
They have several other cars
How?
using.
Several other cars that are that fun?
Yeah.
But I think sometimes with this, people are, particularly with the whole resale thing with GT cars and stuff, that it's become a bit of a, people are buying them as an investment and not driving them. And I think Porsche saw this a little bit because looking at like the previous generation GT3, they made way more than they ever have done. And I think they were listening to people who were saying, who wanted a GT3 and they've been waiting on lists and stuff, and people will come in and buy one and then not drive it, and they are flipping it to make money and things like this. And Porsche, by making more cars and making them more accessible, I think that's a nice thing. So you see more cars being used rather than being sat in a garage somewhere, hoping they'll increase in value.
Yes, that's what you hope to see.
Yeah,
at least.
Now, what's cool about the Taycan Cross Turismo is that last year we sold 1,300 Taycans in Norway.
God.
And that's more cars than the Volvo XC90 and the Skoda Kodiaq sold together.
Is phenomenal.
And now we've sold over 700 cars in a month on the Cross Turismo.
The Cross Turismo.
Yeah. What's cool about that is more people get to feel the Porsche drug, that we'll call it.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you think when people are driving these cars, many people stretch their limit for how much you can pay for a car. Like the most sold car last year was the e-tron, right? And when this car can cost you like a couple of 100,000 more, then you can probably do that. And those people many of those people have never driven a Porsche before.
Yeah,
that's cool to get more people to get that feel, because you get that sporty feel in the Cross Turismo as well as you do in the Taycan.
Yeah,
you just have the options to go off road if you want to.
Speaking of the Cross Turismo, why didn't the Cross Turismo come before the standard Taycan?
That's actually, I think it's really easy to answer. That's because Porsche. That's been the red line between this conversation. That it's a sporty DNA we have.
Mm-hmm.
The first car had to be like they would never produce a 911 electric, right? So they made the Taycan. That's their answer for
a four-door, four-seater.
I think I disagree a bit on the 911 thing.
Okay.
I think the 911 might never be fully electric.
Yeah.
But a hybrid drive.
Yeah,
I'm
it will.
Almost for sure is coming.
Has to happen.
And they said that
to keep
too.
it going. It has to keep it
just
alive.
for regulation.
Yeah, exactly.
But not fully electric.
And that's something that people have to understand. You cannot blame Porsche for if people are disappointed about a hybrid version of the 911.
The loops you have to jump through now with like production petrol vehicles is massive. So do everything they can to keep the 911 alive, I think.
Will the first hybrid 911 be seen kind of in the same vein as the first water-cooled or liquid-cooled?
Maybe. Yeah. But people might think it's taken away from what a 911 should be. But I think Chris Harris said it. The best 911 is always the newest one. So it's not going to be bad, is it? It will be absolutely fantastic. And you'll think, why would I ever not want this?
Yeah. But we're reaching numbers in terms of, at least in terms of acceleration, that are going to be hard to beat for the next generation.
Well, we're hitting the limits of traction in tires.
Yes.
Like it's the amount of kind of G that you pull in this kind of acceleration is very much being limited by tire technology now.
So for the next 911, what can we expect Porsche to focus? Because obviously, I mean, you can't break, 3 seconds now that the C4S goes?
Oh, Turbo S is
2.8?
Is 2.4.
It's it is. It's said. I think it's Porsche says that it does it in 2.7 seconds.
But I think real world, it's a bit faster.
Yeah, it's measured down to 2.3 seconds.
So then now what? What does the next Turbo S have to do?
Under 2.
But under 2 is a whole different world of like physics when it comes to tires.
It is.
Did you see the stuff with the Tesla Roadster and with the SpaceX pack? Yeah. Where they use these cold gas thrusters because and then this can achieve the under 1.5 seconds to 100 time because you overcome the limitations of the tire.
Because the drive doesn't come from
the wheels on the ground. You're just being pushed along and stuff. Yeah. Whereas at the moment, like the Taycan Turbo S is like a monster of a fast car now, and I am certain it could be faster by clicking a few buttons on the computer. For sure, it could be faster, but they are limited on what they can do.
That's dangerous thinking.
It is.
And customers ask, like, is it worth the money to buy a 4S instead of a Cross Turismo 4? And then you get a really good car with the 4, but it takes quite an effort to push that weight, like a second faster to 100. So it makes a big difference. If it's worth it, I don't know, but it's a much more sporty feel. Like you have the rear wheel drive Taycan.
Yep.
I think that's a great car.
It's an important car that they've made it as well, I think, because it makes it achievable for more people.
Yeah, and it's fun to drive. It feels like more feels more like a 911. Like
is it like 140 kilos lighter or something like that?
Significant.
It is.
But you
for an electric car, especially.
Yeah. But the car itself is I think it's a bit too slow. Like when you've been spoiled. You've been spoiled by all these new Taycans, man. It is by no way a slow car. Like,
that is a fast car.
You should drive my Land Rover. That's a slow car.
Yeah, you're the odd one out here.
Yeah,
you're the only one here missing a Land Rover.
Yeah,
you got to get it together.
Yeah,
Porsche needs to make.
I should have one as well. I have 4 kids, so I should definitely have one.
Yeah, no, maybe not the Defender. Yeah. I don't think that's a kid-friendly car.
No. Kids love the Defender. It's great.
But for the next 911, there's no way the jump in speed is going to be as dramatic as it was between the 991 and the 992.
Oh.
So what has to change? Will it be exterior? Will it be looks? Is there any room for handling to improve?
I mean,
it's a great car.
The change to the double wishbone in the new GT3 is a massive change. Mm-hmm. You look at performance wise, the engine is very similar to the previous GT3, and performance wise, it's a lot faster. But this comes from kind of chassis and geometry changes rather than engine, because we are walking up towards a bit of a soft limit on this kind of performance. So it's nice to see that they're still pushing to squeeze it where they can, because it's a pretty polished product already. But it's nice to see that they're still, dropping quite a lot off lap times with the new GT3.
Do you think the base model 911 will ever be 4-wheel drive?
No.
You think the base model will always be rear wheel?
Sure.
It's just built into it.
It has to be. It has to be.
Yeah. You don't think that's as significant as a change as, say, air to liquid cooled, or internal combustion to hybrid, or... I mean, there have been some massive jumps in technology in the 911.
There is, and for out-and-out performance, 4-wheel drive is better, I think. I mean, you don't see very many 4-wheel drive race cars, but this is because that's how that's done. But in terms of out-and-out performance on a street car, 4-wheel drive always wins, in the same way that PDK is always faster than a manual, but everybody wants a manual because of how it feels, and whether you feel the difference between a rear-wheel drive 911 and an all-wheel drive 911, I don't think as many people who say they can actually can. And I think it's more in their mind that they know they're driving a rear-wheel drive 911, and that makes them feel differently, and they enjoy it more because of that.
But Porsche doesn't launch with a manual. The new 911 won't be, here's the manual, take a look at the launch photos, you notice the stick, it's cool, right? So do you think... I mean, because I don't see rear-wheel drive being held in the same regard as the manual versus automatic, or manual versus PDK gearbox. So I'm wondering if maybe at some point, and I wouldn't be surprised, if the new 911 came out as a C4, and then just like they did with the Taycan, you would get the rear-wheel drive version later as like a lesser sold, maybe of less interest, but more authentic, purist experience.
Yeah, but they did that with the 992. The first car that came was the C4.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. Do you think the rear-wheel drive is selling less than the C4?
Yeah,
no way,
but like the you get so much car for the money if you buy the stock Carrera rear-wheel drive. It's such a fun car. Really good car.
And for me, it would be the car I would buy, even in Norway. And like looking for my 964, it was essential that it was a C2, like for sure. And even if I had the money to go buy a 992 now, I think I would spec it as a C2.
Would you?
I think so, yeah. Well, I say this now, but maybe if I actually came to click the button, I might end up falling over onto the 4. I think. Actually, now I think about it, maybe. At least while I live in Norway.
Yeah.
But you don't think with more horsepower that becomes less accessible? The rear-wheel drive as like as like a selling point.
People in Norway, they just think they need 4x4 every time. That's just what you need to have. But the regular Carrera is so good. you have all the weight on the back of the wheels. You have the differential, what the diffsperre?
Yeah, differential.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's such a great winter car, and it doesn't need to be like scary. It's not. It could be exciting if you want it to be, but
I drove my 964 this winter, and put some nice tires on it, and it was impressively good.
Yeah.
You know, for an old car with no traction control, stability control, and stuff. You have a lot of weight on the rear, and it was put a little bit of weight in the front, and it was quite okay.
That looks fun.
Yeah, and it was a blast, to be fair, because it's there when you want it. Then
and you see that now on the Taycan 4S when that launched, so many people bought that car and driving it up to the cabin, but it's not actually like it's a sports car. It's not a winter cabin car, but it can be. It's functional.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm just curious for the future of sports cars in general. That we are getting to a point where they are so phenomenally fast.
Yeah,
they're doing like sub-7s are regular on the Nürburgring, which is like that's extreme time.
Imagine saying that before. I mean, the current Cayenne Turbo S is faster than the 996 GT3 around the Nordschleife, and we're not even talking so long ago.
That's crazy.
This is wild, you know.
And now they're coming with a new Cayenne, the Cayenne GT.
Yeah.
That will be the meanest, baddest Cayenne ever made.
Cayenne GT. Will it have a wing?
Probably not.
Big old fat wing sticking out the back.
Can you imagine?
I think, I think the car will be like they said to Audi that you can have the time on the RSQ8 for...
enjoy it where you can.
Yep.
Yeah. And they use the same engine, just with lots more horsepower.
That engine is getting upgraded like no engine I've seen in an SUV.
Yeah.
It went from the Euros to the RSQ8, now to a GT Cayenne.
Yeah.
How much more room does that engine have to grow?
They use a lot of good engines, like on the 2-liter on the Macan is used in. I have a Polo GTI. It's used in that car. It's used in the Ford GTI. Volkswagen GTI, the Volkswagen R, the Macan.
And people kind of complain about this a little bit, but I think as a consumer, you only benefit from manufacturers using economies of scale and leaning on each other to help out with different things. I mean, it's no secret that Porsche is owned by Volkswagen Group. Even if they are a separate subsidiary, they are still owned, and they share a lot of components, and it's not a secret about this.
And some people say like the Macan is just Audi Q5, right? But
those people haven't driven a Macan.
No, that's the thing. Like when
you drive a Q5 and get out and get into a Macan, it's a totally different car.
Must be.
It's when they were to build the Macan, they had nine people to develop the car. They worked on the 911 and developed that, and then they gave every one of them a 911 to drive for a year, and then those 9 people sat down to make the Macan. So there's no way, there's no similarities at all. And even if it sets like Audi some places in the engine, it's so different. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people see the Macan as like a little Cayenne, and it's far from it. For me, the Macan is much more like a bigger Cayman. Like it's a Cayman with 5 seats, you know.
Yeah.
I've never driven it.
If you push a Macan, you get out of it and you're like, this car is not this big, you know, when you're driving it. It's fantastic to drive.
And it's the cool thing about Macan is that the GTS version is probably the most fun version, not the turbo one. You have more power on the turbo one, but it's too like comfy and soft.
I want to try the Macan. I've never tried it.
Yeah,
I want to go back to what you said about the current Cayenne being faster around the ring than the 996 GT3. That's what it was, right? How old is the 996 GT3 now?
That's a good question. Is it about 2000?
That's almost 20 years old.
I'm not sure about that. 2001 or something.
Yeah.
Do you think the Cayenne in 2040 will be faster than the current GT3?
I mean,
this is my problem with new supercars.
If it carries on in the way it is at the moment, it'll be significantly faster.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at how much time
How?
it took us to go from, the first time humans ever flew. You look at the Wright brothers and how long it took us to get to there. And 60 years later, we land on the moon. And this advancement is so fast all the time.
Yeah, but the moon is beyond the moon. There's a lot of room to grow.
There is, but we are coming at it so fast. Like, we look at what cars will be like in 40 years. It's going to be fucking wild. Like,
I'm excited. I'm going to leave it on that. I think that's plenty for an hour and 5 minutes. Feels productive. I'm happy. There's a lot left to talk about. Yeah. There's an infinite amount. But thank you guys very much. Stoked. This was fun.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Where can people find you guys? If you want them to.
I post on Instagram. If you want to follow me, it's Stephen Foxall.
Yes.
Pretty active.
And you don't care.
Yeah, I don't care.
Stian's got too many kids for Instagram.
That is the correct answer.
He hasn't got that time.
Stian Espehjelle is my name.
There you go. That is the correct answer.
Yeah.
And if you want to see more of my work, my interviews, my whatever you call whatever it is I'm doing, you can click like and subscribe and tell all your friends. Thank you very much to the 5 people who finished the podcast. Thank you guys for being here.
Real OGs.